I never imagined my life could take such a sharp turn, not like this, not from someone I trusted. It was just another regular day at work, the kind you barely remember a week later. Same coffee, same emails, same half-hearted good morning greetings as I walked past familiar desks. I thought I had everything under control. I thought I was safe, until he showed up. At first, there was nothing unusual. He had joined our department a few months earlier, just another friendly face in a sea of cubicles. His name was Jason, confident, funny, a little too charming. But nothing about him set off any alarms. We weren't close, just casual coworkers who exchanged laughs during team lunches and the occasional late email. I had no reason to worry, or so I believed. Back then, I was in a committed relationship. Not perfect, but stable. I felt grounded. We had our routines, our plans for the future, and I didn't think anything, or anyone, could come between that. I wasn't looking for anything. I wasn't craving attention. But that's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't always come loud and obvious. Sometimes it starts as a whisper, something so small and harmless that you don't even realize what's happening until it's too late. The first shift was subtle. A compliment here, a lingering glance there. The way Jason remembered the tiniest things I said, the way he laughed at my jokes like they were the funniest he'd ever heard. It felt innocent. I brushed it off. Told myself I was imagining it. But then came the late-night texts. The inside jokes. The looks that lingered too long in the office hallway. I kept telling myself it was just friendship. That it was all in my head. I didn't want to believe that I was walking into something dangerous. I didn't want to admit that I was starting to look forward to seeing him every day. That I was hiding parts of our conversations from my partner. That I had stopped mentioning his name at home. Everything came crashing down the night I stayed late at work. Just the two of us in the office, the rest of the team already gone. It had been a long day, and I didn't think twice when Jason offered to help me finish a presentation. That was the night the line got crossed, the night I realized that what I thought was harmless had already started unraveling everything I had worked so hard to protect. But what happened after that was even worse. Because what I didn't know was that Jason had his own reasons for getting close to me. And the moment I thought it was just about temptation, just about a mistake, was the moment I lost control completely. That's when everything started to fall apart. And the worst part? This wasn't just about infidelity. It was about deception. About manipulation. And about a secret I never saw coming. After that night, something changed in me. I couldn't stop thinking about it, not just what happened, but how I let it happen. I started replaying every moment, every word, wondering if it was ever real or if I'd been played all along. Jason acted like nothing was different the next morning. He smiled the same way, joked like usual, but now there was something behind his eyes, something I hadn't noticed before. I kept waiting for the guilt to push me to confess. To say something to my partner. But I didn't. Instead, I buried it deep and told myself it was a one-time mistake. That no one needed to know. That keeping quiet would protect everything I'd built. But the more I tried to move on, the more Jason leaned in. He started texting me at odd hours. Just random things, a meme, a song, something that reminded him of an inside joke. They didn't seem dangerous on the surface, but they kept pulling me back in. Every time I tried to set boundaries, he'd find a new way to cross them without making it obvious. He'd touch my arm just a little too long during meetings. He'd wait for me after work even when I hadn't asked. It was like he knew I wouldn't say anything. Like he had some sort of hold over me now. But here's where things started to get weird, and I mean really weird. One day, I got a message on my personal Instagram from an account I didn't recognize. No name, no posts, just a single DM that said, "Be careful who you trust." I froze. I didn't know what it meant. I thought maybe it was spam or a joke, but it didn't feel random. My heart was racing. I showed it to no one. Then, a week later, I noticed that my partner had started acting differently. He was quieter. A little distant. I asked if everything was okay, and he said he was just tired from work. But he never looked me in the eyes when he said it. That's when I started wondering, did he know something? And just when I thought things couldn't get any more complicated, I overheard Jason on a call. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but his voice carried through the hallway. He was saying something about leverage and making her crack. I couldn't make sense of it. I didn't even know if he was talking about me, but deep down, I felt something twist in my gut. Something told me this wasn't just about a bad decision or a secret affair. Something told me Jason had a plan all along. And I had walked right into it. From that moment on, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, not in some dramatic way, but in the small details. Like when I'd walk past the break room and feel eyes on my back. Or when my partner started asking oddly specific questions about my day, as if he already knew the answers and was just testing me. Everything I thought I had under control started to slip through my fingers. At work, Jason's behavior got even more confusing. One day he'd act like nothing ever happened between us, cold, distant, strictly professional. Then the next, he'd show up at my desk with coffee, cracking jokes like we were still in that weird, secret bubble. It was like he was playing a game I didn't understand, and I couldn't tell if he was still interested, or if he was just enjoying how nervous he made me. Meanwhile, at home, I kept catching myself lying about little things. Where I'd been, who I was with, why I was late. Things I never used to lie about. My partner, Ben, didn't say much, but the silence felt heavier every day. I didn't know if he was pulling away or just waiting for me to come clean. The guilt was eating me up, but so was the fear. What if I told the truth and lost everything? What if I stayed quiet and things just kept getting worse? Then, something unexpected happened. One of my closest friends at work, Maria, pulled me aside one afternoon. She looked serious, almost nervous, like she didn't know if she should even be telling me. She said she'd overheard Jason talking to someone on the phone in the parking lot. He mentioned my name. And then he said something about getting what he wanted. My stomach dropped. I asked her if she was sure, and she nodded, but told me to be careful. She said Jason had a reputation she hadn't mentioned before, something about getting too close to coworkers and leaving a trail of drama behind. I couldn't believe I hadn't seen it. Or maybe I had, and just chose to ignore it. Now, not only was I trapped in a secret that was slowly ruining my relationship, but I was starting to realize I didn't know who Jason really was. Or what he wanted from me. But one thing was becoming clear, this wasn't just an affair. It was something darker. And I was already in too deep. I couldn't sleep. Nights turned into long hours of staring at the ceiling, wondering what Jason really meant when he said getting what he wanted. Was I just a distraction? A challenge? Or was there something deeper he was after? My mind ran in circles, piecing together everything I had missed, the odd timing of his transfers, the way he always managed to insert himself into conversations with senior management, the charm he used like a weapon. At work, I started noticing something else. People looked at me differently. Whispers stopped when I entered the room. Emails I should have been copied on were missing. It felt like I was slowly being pushed out of the loop. And Jason? He acted completely normal. Like none of it affected him. Like he was already 10 steps ahead. I tried talking to Maria again, hoping she might have learned more. But when I brought it up, her tone changed. She looked over her shoulder, then told me to drop it. "You don't want to mess with him," she said under her breath, eyes full of warning. That's when I realized she was scared too. Maybe she knew more than she let on, or maybe she'd seen what happened to others who got too close. Either way, I was alone now. At home, things were unraveling fast. Ben barely spoke to me. His smiles were forced, his touches colder. One night, I caught him looking through my phone. He tried to pretend it was something else, but I knew. The trust we had was already broken, and he could feel it, even if he didn't know the full truth yet. Then came the breaking point. It was a Friday, right before a big presentation I was supposed to lead. I walked into the conference room, ready to go over the slides, and there Jason was, already seated at the head of the table, flipping through the printouts I had prepared. He smiled at me like nothing was wrong and said, "Hope you don't mind. I figured I'd take the lead today since you've been a little distracted lately." My heart stopped. Everyone looked at me, waiting for my reaction. I forced a smile, but inside, I was screaming. That was the moment I knew this had nothing to do with feelings or chemistry or a bad decision. This was calculated. Jason was coming after everything I had. And I had no idea how far he was willing to go. I stood frozen, holding my laptop, trying not to show the panic building in my chest. Jason sat there with that same calm, confident expression, as if this had been the plan all along. I could feel the eyes of our coworkers flicking between us, confused, maybe curious, but none of them had any idea what was really happening beneath the surface. I didn't argue. I didn't fight it. I took a seat and let him run the meeting, nodding at the right moments, pretending everything was fine. But inside, I was spinning. Jason hadn't just crossed a line, he had stepped directly into my role. And somehow, no one questioned it. He had managed to make himself look like the solution to a problem I didn't even know I was being accused of causing. When the meeting ended, I tried to confront him privately. I pulled him aside near the elevator and asked him straight up, "What are you doing?" His response chilled me. "Relax," he said, smiling. "You've been a little off lately. Just trying to help." Then he leaned in slightly and whispered, "Unless you want me to share a few things I've kept quiet about." That was the moment it hit me. Jason had something on me, or thought he did. Maybe screenshots, maybe messages, maybe something that could be twisted just enough to look worse than it was. My heart pounded as I stepped away from him, realizing I was no longer just dealing with a mistake. I was being threatened. That night, I went home shaken. I didn't tell Ben anything, but I could barely hold a normal conversation. I started to question everything, how Jason had managed to get so close to me so quickly, how he knew just when to act, and why he was suddenly positioning himself for my job. It felt like a setup from the start. And then, just when I thought it couldn't get any worse, I got an email. No subject line. No name. Just a single sentence, "You're not the first." Attached was a screenshot, an old one, taken from another company's internal forum. A thread about workplace manipulation, referencing someone with a story eerily similar to mine. And the name mentioned? Jason. He had done this before. I spent the next hour reading every comment, every post. A different city, a different company, but the same pattern. A new employee, someone trusting, someone with influence. He'd get close, cross the line, and when things got complicated, he'd twist the story to protect himself and ruin them in the process. That's when I realized this wasn't about revenge or drama. This was a pattern. A strategy. And if I didn't act soon, I'd be next in line to lose everything, my job, my relationship, and whatever trust one had left in myself. But what I didn't know yet was that someone else in the office had been watching all along. And they were about to come forward. The next morning, I arrived at the office earlier than I ever had before. I hadn't slept, but something had shifted. I was done being afraid. If Jason had done this before, I needed proof. I needed to take back control before he completely destroyed my career and my life. I went straight to HR. I sat in that cold room, my hands shaking, and told them everything. Not just about what happened between us, but about the screenshots, the manipulation, the threats. I even shared the anonymous email I had received the night before. At first, the HR rep looked skeptical, but then something changed. She leaned forward and said, "You're not the first person to come to us about him." That's when everything clicked. They had been watching him too. And while I thought I was alone in all this, I wasn't. Turns out, someone else in the department, someone quiet, who barely spoke, had been documenting his behavior for weeks. Screenshots, recordings, timestamps. They hadn't known what to do with it, until now. My report had connected the dots. By lunchtime, Jason was called into HR. He walked past my desk with that same arrogant grin, like he still thought he had the upper hand. But when he came out nearly an hour later, he didn't look at me. He just walked straight out of the building, no words, no smirk, no goodbye. Later that afternoon, the HR rep confirmed it. Jason had been terminated. Not just for what he'd done to me, but for a list of other incidents that had come to light during the investigation. It wasn't just a personal win, it was justice. And for the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe again. But just when I thought the nightmare was over, I got a message. Another anonymous one. This time, it simply said, "You were easy." Attached was a photo, one I didn't even know existed. It was of me and Jason in the break room, mid-conversation, with his hand briefly grazing mine. The image was blurry, but the implication was clear. Someone else had been watching. And they weren't done. I showed HR immediately, but they couldn't trace the sender. The email was from a burner account. The timing was too precise. It felt like a parting shot from Jason, or maybe someone else connected to him. Either way, it left a chill in my spine. Ben and I eventually had the talk. I told him everything, the truth, the mistakes, the manipulation. It wasn't easy, and I'm not sure where we stand yet. But at least now, I'm no longer hiding. I've taken back my voice. Still, that final message lingers in my mind. Because while Jason may be gone, someone else had been part of it. And I can't help but wonder if they're still watching. After everything that happened, life didn't go back to normal, but maybe that was a good thing. I started focusing more on setting boundaries, not just at work, but in every part of my life. I stopped pretending to be okay just to keep the peace. I stopped silencing my instincts. Most of all, I stopped letting guilt make my decisions for me. The investigation into Jason officially closed a few weeks later. HR assured me that they had flagged his name with multiple organizations, preventing him from slipping through the cracks again. It didn't erase what happened, but it helped to know I wasn't just one of many anymore. I had spoken up. And that mattered. At work, people slowly began treating me like myself again. A few even apologized for being distant, admitting they didn't know how to handle what they'd heard or assumed. I didn't blame them. It's easy to believe the wrong version of a story when someone like Jason controls the narrative. Maria eventually opened up, too. She confessed she had been scared because something similar had almost happened to her. She saw what Jason was doing to me but didn't know how to step in without putting herself at risk. We weren't close before, but something about surviving that mess together built a bond between us. We now check in on each other, and that means more to me than she knows. As for Ben, we're still working through things. There's no perfect ending there, no dramatic reunion or instant forgiveness. But we talk more now. Real conversations, even when they're hard. He says he doesn't trust me completely yet, and I don't expect him to. Trust has to be rebuilt, slowly, honestly. And I'm willing to do that, no matter how long it takes. I've learned something powerful through all of this. Sometimes the biggest threats don't come from strangers. Sometimes they wear friendly faces and sit next to you in meetings. And sometimes, the damage they do isn't just to your career, it's to your confidence, your peace, your ability to trust yourself. But the truth always finds a way out. If you've ever felt stuck, or silenced, or scared to speak up, know this, your voice matters. Even when it shakes. Even when it's late. Because I thought I was safe, until my coworker showed up. But now, I know better. And I won't make the same mistake twice. 39.